I am Adam McCrary. This is Steve Jones Jr. by my side, former player, coach, current host of the Dunker Spot. Steve, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing all right. We're back to talk about some things here on From the Wing that you're less of a fan of. We've got trade wins. We have player movement discussions. We have near hostage situations happening on some teams, and maybe they affect the Pelicans. So we're going to get into that. First, we got to check in on some things we just talked about relative to another one of your favorite topics, the New Orleans Pelicans tank efforts. We said that Charlotte and Toronto were games to look at as a watermark of where we were going to be with this tank and how tanky could we be. And we went from a 4-game win streak to a oddly postponed Milwaukee game where a blizzard hit New Orleans. And unfortunately, Milwaukee flew in early and then got stuck and then had to leave anyway. And then we landed on 3 consecutive losses. And 2 of those included Charlotte and Toronto. And Steve, those games were ugly. They were very ugly. But maybe not in a deliberate tanky way, more just in a bad basketball way. So what are your thoughts now on the current tanking levels of the New Orleans Pelicans after our watermark games?
Well, this should let you know, anyone that was concerned that, we're going to be too good or talking about the play-in, you can calm that down. But this is just going to be the best of both worlds right now. You're going to have moments and flashes where the Pelicans are able to sustain offense and sustain defense and look good. And you're going to have nights where they get beat. And we just saw that they still can get beat. The problem is, how much worse can they be than everyone else? Because some of those other teams are also still losing. The Wizards have lost 14 straight. The Jazz have lost 7 straight. So you're kind of in that tier. The Nets have lost 7 straight. So you're just kind of in that up and down tier. So I just would say you're going to have to live in the middle place. Sometimes it's going to be good. Sometimes it's going to be bad. But it's not going to be one or the other. I'm so sorry.
So during that 3-game stretch, the only team that has been worse in the NBA is the Brooklyn Nets. And the Brooklyn Nets are, like you said, on a 7-game losing streak. And we happen to catch Toronto on a 4-game win streak. Well, we were the 4th game. That includes like the revival of Bruce Brown, maybe because he's about to depart and they needed to prove to teams that he's not dead because he missed a lot of this season and has looked not himself when he has played. And now Bruce Brown looks like himself. And he's a very, very helpful player for a lot of teams. So this is one, if we want to talk about trade windows and auditioning, proving that a player that people already believe in the reputation of, just proving that he's healthy enough to acquire by showing him playing a full game of basketball a couple times in a row, that is actually put somebody in the shop window. So Toronto comes in. These games were a little bit different. Toronto was just a mess. The Raptors game was just an absolute mess up and down. Pelicans never really got into it, but were bad on both ends. Charlotte was kind of a specific thing that happens for Charlotte sometimes. Charlotte shoots a lot of threes. The Pelicans have tried to shoot a lot of threes basically since Brandon Ingram went out and since Zion came back. But the Pelicans don't really shoot threes all that well unless it comes from 3 specific people. And if they're on a heater, then the Pelicans are a good 3-point team. And if they're not, then they're not. Charlotte made a lot of threes right out the gate and jumped ahead and got very comfortable taking them. And that just kind of puts the game like mathematically out of reach for the Pelicans a little bit because of how they like to score. And then they start chasing the threes. They take bad ones. They miss them. And we just kind of never got back in the Charlotte game. It was a very, very, very difficult watch. And that was with them sitting a lot of guys, a lot of dudes, including Mark Williams, who was not there, which would lead you to believe that you'd accomplish something around the rim. But the Pelicans did not.
You got to put some respect on Taj Gibson's name, number 1. And number 2, I will ask a question that I asked previously, kind of early on in the Steve era. Was this fun to watch Hornets kind of do that to the Pelicans? Is that what you want?
No, look, I'm a convert. You threw me in the baptismal waters. I have been cleansed in the waters of Lake Minnetonka. I am absolutely not a fan of watching us lose to terrible teams. It's too rough. And just at my core, I look at the roster and what I believe about these players, and I do not believe they are as bad as the worst ones. So it's very, very hard for me to legitimize, like to make an honest argument that they're a bottom 3 team in the NBA. There isn't an argument for that. These other teams are worse than you. Do they have nights where their offense is so horrific and their defense without Herb Jones is so bad that they look like a bottom 3 team? They resemble one? Yes. Did they also get January production from 6 games of Zion Williamson that only resemble a handful of players in the NBA that are on all of your MVP ballots? Also, yes. So, yeah, it's a tough scene right now a little bit. I'm cool with just like wherever. I just don't want to worry about the record. I want them to look good when the right guys are out there. I will understand when they don't look good because things are, falling apart. But do you think something happened? Like we saw the picture of the offense look a certain way when Zion comes back. Like everybody is clearly lifted, ball was moving, everyone was moving and shifting around the floor rather than the standstill kind of ISO heavy stuff, the yours and mine. We got out of that and we saw like a Boston Celtics game that comes within one possession where they're going step for step. It almost feels like they've been told that their season isn't for anything or that they've had the realization because of how now.
I think it's ball movement. I mean, I think when you look at it, even if you go back to the Grizzlies game, right? They had 30 assists, 45 made field goals, 30 assists for the Pelicans. Against the Hornets, 32 made field goals, 21 assists. Against the Raptors, 39 made field goals, 21 assists. So are you creating for each other? Are you getting easy looks? Who is able to create? Who's knocking down shots? You look at the bench production in the Hornets game, you got a grand total of 2 bench players who scored points. That was Jose Alvarado and Javonte Green. In the Raptors game, you had a grand total of 2 bench players who scored points. That was Javonte Green and Jordan Hawkins. So a consistency and a flow combined with the defense, especially when you look at the Charlotte game where Yves Misty was asked, hey, can you get up to the level? We're going to put 2 on the ball. And it didn't really go that great as far as, hey, we can get rotations. We can hit the short roll. We can turn the corner. They pretty much got whatever they wanted. And so I think you combine that with just a defense that's trying to figure things out. You're not necessarily getting stops in the half court. The kind of the sets and the flow that we saw during the good Pelicans run kind of got replaced with random basketball, which isn't the end of the world. The problem is, are you taking early shots? Are you making the defense shift? Are you creating for each other, or are we defaulting back to pick and roll? Are we defaulting back to we're late in the clock, I have to attack? It's early in the clock, I'm going to try and get a pull-up 3 or early attack. What are those shots looking like? What does your drive and kick look like? Are you only getting one drive, one kick, and then that person's trying to drive and shoot because everyone stayed at home? Those are the kind of things you're probably looking at during this stretch where it's like, this looks a little bit different.
And during that stretch, they have actually gotten to the line a lot. And they have not turned the ball over very much. However, the bulk of their turnovers during the 6 games that Zion did play have come from him. So during this last little stretch, like while they're playing bad, like 2 of the security blankets in basketball are not turning the ball over and being able to get to the free throw line. However, if you go to the free throw line and shoot bottom of the league in the 60s from said line, on like 17 attempts in a game, doesn't help very much. And if every single one of the turnovers that you do give leads to a layup, also not good. It's a struggle right now to see positives in this last little stretch. In January, there are some positives. You played against some bad teams and you played very good basketball for about half the month. And this last little stretch is pretty bad. And that this also like, this includes back-to-backs, like part of the reason that you see bad basketball. If you have to go away on a back-to-back, it's not great. If you have to go play in Canada, a lot of people lose in Canada because they have to fly to Canada to go play there. Like it's a home court advantage, unlike many others. There's Miami nightlife and there's the Canadian border.
There's also Canadian nightlife.
Yeah, there's that too, and some wonderful food. But having to go to all those places, like, that does impact them, and it did impact these games. But during the stretch, like the one bright spot, especially in the last little run, Zion's numbers are MVP-like if you stretch him to 36. However, they're not stretched to 36 minutes. He's playing like 24 to 26. Now we're managing in a guy that's been on, injury watch every moment of his life. And he also had an illness during the stretch that Yves Missi also had. So he's still as bright as ever, looking as good as ever, scoring essentially over a point a minute when he plays. I think in the last 3 games, he played 2 of the last 3, and he averaged 29 and 9 on like 67, 68% shooting. That's great. That's who you want. That's the guy that you go all in for. Quick shout out to Everett Cooper, that every Pelicans fan that's on Twitter knows who he is. He's the most positive Pelicans fan we've got. Had a great tweet the other day after the Eagles game that Saquon Barkley is the reason he can't quit Zion Williamson. And at first I kind of double taked, and I was like, no, he nailed that. A+ tweet, no notes. If it works one time, it could mean the world. And Zion still looks like that. So expand his game and the people around him and wrap him in bubble wrap to the best of your ability and get to that one good year. And that's all I could hope for. I'm not even going to say 3 years, 4 years, 5 years stretch. Just give me one. Give me one moment in the sun.
Or does that mean you lose belief in Zion and he does it for someone else?
Absolutely not. No.
Oh.
Nope. Rejecting that entirely. Some people believe that.
My bad.
Some people believe that.
I was doing the Saquon thing because
nope. That's not the part of Saquon I want to focus on.
Oh, okay. My bad. That's on me.
Just the one where somebody bets on him when he's downtrodden, and it works out. Actually, that's kind of thing. That's how the conversation. Rewind. Boop, 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 boop. What I should have said is that's why the Giants shouldn't have let him leave.
Okay. Now I get it. Makes sense now.
There it is.
I get it.
Because if the Giants don't let him leave, they don't have to feel how the Pelicans would feel if they let Zion go somewhere else and average 28, 7, and 6. Because look, it's gonna happen. This is New Orleans. This is New Orleans sports. People leave here and they go experience joy, and we experience heartbreak. It's all over the NFL. It happens in the NBA all the time. I'm not letting him go. He's staying here. Ball and chain the whole way. But he's looked great. They've looked bad after a little run there. And I think what we believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that like January is pretty emblematic of where they are as a team. They can beat bad teams, and they can also just have really terrible nights because they are in that middle tier of the bottom of the NBA. More talented, but also like pretty disconnected.
Well, I think to add to that, I think when you're a struggling team in a season, it's not necessarily about being a team that can't win games or can't compete. It's just hard for you to sustain your good for 48 minutes. That's always the struggle when you're kind of going up and down, trying to figure things out. You can have a good quarter, you can have a good half. Can you do it for 48? And I think that's kind of been the up and down for the Pelicans. I think there are nights they can find it. I think there are nights where they don't have it, they find it, the other team keeps coming, they lose it. It's there's not a lot of margin for error. You can have a 42-point quarter in Memphis, but then if you give up 43 in the third, well, what have you accomplished? So there's just a yin-yang when you're kind of in this position and trying to fight your way through it.
Important note on that Memphis fourth quarter is that John Morant did not play. So
hey, who did play?
Jaren Jackson Jr., Zach Edey.
Zach Edey did play.
Yeah, he got yammed on too.
Was that during the 13-11 in 24?
He got yammed on. He got yammed on. Don't look. We could do this. We're going to do this all. We're going to do this the rest of the season. Noted all rookie invitees, by the way. Those Grizzly rookies that we've been talking about invited to the rookie game, as well as Yves Missi. So shout out to all of them. We'll put the weapons down, and we'll just celebrate that all of them are getting some respect. And Khalil Ware is not, which is interesting because he's now the Rookie of the Year betting favorite. But a little late to the game. Thank you, Jimmy Butler. Final question on where the Pelicans are currently. Take a glance at their schedule. We've talked about it already. Schedule gets bad. And I think I might only see one game where they're going to be favored.
Which
the rest
of
the season.
The rest of the season?
Take a look.
No, I know. We've gone over how this schedule gets treacherous, but
I don't feel great. I don't feel great. I think the best outlook they have is April 8th against Brooklyn. And even that, it's at Brooklyn. Other than that, man, it's a lot of actually, you know what we need to recalculate? There are 3 Kings games in there, and now they probably won't have De'Aaron Fox. So maybe there's something in there, a little depression wave hits in there, a little unsettled offense when one of the primary factors ain't there no more. But it doesn't look good. Doesn't look good.
You mean, this pre-All-Star break schedule is kind of brutal. Dallas, Boston at home, 2 games at Denver. Enjoy the altitude at Sacramento. Post-trade deadline, by the way. Which, here's the thing about this, right? Let's say a trade happens hypothetically. Maybe it's some guy's debut. We've seen that give a team a pop, especially at home. Or we only have X amount of guys. Everyone knows they're going to play, and they're going to play hard. So that's the one part about the Hornets game. Or even some of these matchups where guys are resting or guys are sitting out. Those are not easy teams to beat in the NBA. One, whatever your prep was usually gets thrown out the window, depending on how good your staff is. I've had many times where I've had to spend an afternoon reconfiguring whatever was told in the morning because, hey, those guys aren't playing anymore. 2, the guys who are playing know that, I'm not going to get subbed out for anything, pretty much. So I'm going to go ball. Just a random consideration to put in there.
So it doesn't look good. And as we said, there is a key series in there to look at. Another one of our little watermarks to look at is going to be those Sacramento Kings games, because they could be missing one of the foundational elements of their team. Because as we heard yesterday, De'Aaron Fox is on the move. We have another one of Steve's favorite topics, player movement and or the extortion of talent. Big fun, not talking about basketball stuff. Always good. De'Aaron Fox, look, word comes out formally. The team confirms De'Aaron Fox in the shop window, reporting from Sam Amick saying that there was conversation with Rich Paul, and that basically they came as close to requesting a trade without saying the words, I am requesting a trade. They have both decided that he is available, and they are taking, quote unquote, more than a dozen calls as of this morning. But there is also a favorite in the clubhouse from the Fox camp, and it's the easiest deal to be made in the NBA. It's Victor Wembanyama's fighting San Antonio Spurs, who have all of the right salaries and all of their draft assets and can very easily make this happen. So they're the odds-on favorite. And then obviously everybody who's been telling their team that they're interested in a star player is saying they're interested too, whether they can get a deal done or not. And there has always been 2 particular rumors around the Houston Rockets where persistently they're preparing themselves to either get De'Aaron Fox, or the other more overt one is a departing Phoenix Devin Booker. So the De'Aaron Fox rumor is back for the Houston Rockets, but the Houston Rockets' young guns are playing quite well. So, Steve, your favorite, where's De'Aaron Fox going?
I don't think Houston should trade for De'Aaron Fox. I think that with what you found, especially beating Cleveland, beating Boston, and Thompson playing well, Jalen Green playing well, it happening almost at the same time. You're the number 2 team in the West. I'm usually pro. If there's a chance to get the talent, go ahead and take it. But I would wait and see how good this is and see what the trade market is in the offseason. Once you kind of know, okay, this is what's going to hold us back in the playoffs, or this is what we need to push us over the top. So I don't know about Houston. The San Antonio thing is very interesting. I just wonder what would be the cost. I mean, if I'm De'Aaron Fox and I see what Chris Paul's been able to do with Victor Wembanyama, I would imagine that I think I could also do very good things with Victor Wembanyama. And I think
Chris Paul's been shooting like 30% for the last 2 years.
I think the issue is, does San Antonio have a person that helps Sacramento? Because Sacramento's still in the throes of competing. They've turned things around, not all the way to where they want to be, but like it's not like they're gonna be bad. So is it Keldon Johnson? Is it Devin Vassell? Is it Trey Jones? Like, what is it that's gonna work? I mean, if I'm San Antonio, I would definitely do that. Because here's the thing. At some point, you do have to accelerate to the next step. With how good Wembanyama is, you kind of have to do it the right way, but you are going to have to add a piece. And so if De'Aaron Fox wants to play there, that's someone I would go get, because he can self-create, very speedy. 2-man game with Victor would be really good. And now you've got more talent. And the more talent you are, the better you are, the more people want to come play for you. You give yourself a little bit of a ballpark. Everything about development and a rebuild and culture and all the things people say buzzword-wise, it's just to get you talent. You're going to cash it in at some point to take the next step to get the players that will make you win. And so I don't know if the Spurs are all the way there. Eventually, you do have to kind of put 2 feet forward.
And so you referenced for Houston the timing of this not being ideal. And I think that's where we're both hinting at, is like, maybe this could be the move for them, but the timing's not great given what they have. There are things to find out. And you mentioned waiting till the trade market in the summer. The struggle with waiting is there may not be someone available in the summer window that fits your team. And we do know that like they have had like kind of expressed designs on a future with Devin Booker. And I honestly, based on what we've seen, you might be bullish on if you're Houston, not even worrying about the next couple of windows, and just keep your eyes on the Devin Booker prize at the end of the tunnel. Develop your guys until he arrives and lands on a now veteran team full of switchy, weird talent players that kind of fit, where you found a way to also remain tough on defense. I think the Spurs thing's interesting. I've dabbled in the machine a bit, so I know kind of generally what it would look like it would need to take. The only deal that they could really do that would make sense for Sacramento if they were going heads up is to send them just a boatload of picks. And maybe that's the right thing for Sacramento to do, is to be like, look, people don't choose Sacramento. DeMar DeRozan was just the greatest free agency acquisition that we've ever had. So we should not bet on that happening. So we don't need cap space. And
should they bet on the draft though?
I mean, you get a Euro to stay there for a decade, and that's worth something. The Utah Jazz know that there are certain people that are cool with just staying where they're at that can be made happy, and there are some that aren't. So maybe, I think so. Just don't
points to draft history runs away.
Just don't send Tyrese Halliburton away. Play him with De'Aaron Fox or something. It was such a strange call when they did it. The thing that's interesting is the San Antonio does not really have that young player that is like immediately comes to mind as like the key piece that they get back. Unless you're huge on Devin Vassell and they want to move him, that salary on Devin Vassell is already high. So you got to really believe in Devin Vassell.
Do you believe in Devin Vassell?
I do not. Not $30 million worth. Not for 4 more years.
I'm noticing a trend here.
Are you?
Wing, not so great at defense, shoots the ball a lot. Not a fan.
Not really.
I'm noticing. I'm noticing an archetype that you don't enjoy.
If you shoot a lot and make a lot, or shoot a lot and make big baskets, I can be made a fan. But if you try to take a game winner over Victor Wembanyama, who's open for a dunk, yeah, I'm gonna think you're not good at this, and it's gonna stick in my head forever because he did that. He took a final possession shot against the Pelicans and lost them the game when Victor Wembanyama rolled and was wide open.
I understand it now.
Yep. Well, now you see me. You see through me. But yeah, they don't have the young talent like the Trey Jones, the like Malachi Branham. There are some names on there like City Sissoko's down the roster somewhere. These are like retread, like give another shot on a different team, developmental players or like rotation guys. They're not like the prime asset. So the prime asset for them is picks, unless they bring in a third team that has stuff you want. Shout out to Kevin O'Connor's terrible 3-teamer with the Jazz that he then threw off a cliff himself. That was pretty funny.
Wait, what do you mean threw off a cliff himself?
Oh, he posited that it should be 4 picks going out the door and that 2 of them should go to Utah so that the Sacramento Kings can get Colin Sexton and John Collins. And that's the who would say no. So Utah gets 2 of the picks. So Sacramento loses out on 2 of the 4 firsts and gets Sexton and Collins because they need proven guys for right now. And I looked at it as like, well, the Sacramento Kings say no because I'm losing the picks and getting like players that I'm going to want to deal again in a year. So no, I don't. This is terrible for me. I don't know who the third team is, but I agree with you. Like I think you honed in on something there. So the Spurs don't have the thing that they want unless they really just love Devin Vassell. But I think with the weird apron market we're in, we're going to have to get more and more adjusted to 3 and 4 team trades. So I don't think it would be surprising to find one of these rumored teams like a Milwaukee or a Miami or someone like that tying into a larger trade to get somebody they do want.
Okay, so can I make a confession here? Because this landed in my brain as you were talking. So this is part of the reason why I don't enjoy trade talk. Number one, how am I supposed to project draft picks and who's going to give what and what the value is? And they should give 3 picks or 2 picks. I can't do that. I don't know. Number two, I don't know all the financials. So there are decisions being made on these trades where, hey, if we, every time Phoenix makes a trade, it's like they saved $37 million in tax. It's like, okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, we can talk about the basketball part in a second, but yeah, you sit in a meeting and you say, hey, we trade this guy for that guy. We say $47 million. Okay, why am I mad at that? That makes a lot of business sense. Number 2 or 3, I forgot my number count. Who has the young person that the Kings would want? That's where it gets tricky. Because why wouldn't you just call Miami and be like, hey, seems like you have an issue over there. Would you like to dance? Why wouldn't you? Like Orlando probably has a nice haul of talent that you could accumulate for De'Aaron Fox. Do you want to do that? Do you want to call the Lakers?
You know what I'm curious about?
What's up?
There's somebody that sticks in my craw that's not playing in the NBA right now very much.
Isaiah Thomas?
No. How funny is it that Danny Ainge is the guy giving him another shot after all that went down?
Hey, man.
I found it humorous.
He just had 40.
I found it humorous. Where did he have the 40? Where was the 40?
He had 40 in his first G League games. He's averaging 40
and the important part there is the G League, where a lot of guys hit a 30 or a 40 spot that just prove that the G League doesn't play defense.
Oh,
All right.
wait, are you disrespecting the G League?
I
Continue.
am. I am. Save that for another time. No, so I do wonder about Houston's involvement in this trade from a different perspective. What if De'Aaron Fox is not the guy, but Houston is chock full of pieces and stuff and people that overlap? They are probably the most talent-laden roster. If I'm the Kings, you know what I'd like to do? I'd like to get Houston involved in some way. Speaking of the G League, give me Reed Shepherd. Get him out of there. When is he going to play? Who's he going to play over? How's he going to play? Get me that in Sacramento as my lead asset, plus some draft stuff. I could feel pretty good about that. He could play right now. We could find out what it is. Might be good next year. I think he's probably the highest IQ player. He was definitely the analytical darling of the last draft. I believe in him a lot. And Houston, what's Houston going to do with him? He's playing a lot of G League games.
I'm afraid I've got some bad news. The Houston Rockets are likely only going to be like, hey, do you want Fred VanVleet and maybe one of these guys? Why am I giving you Reed Shepherd?
Because I'm not playing him and I can get paid for it. Amen Thompson looking like an absolute freak defender, like already a top 5 defender. I'm keeping all these other guys. This idea that Jalen and Şengün couldn't play together might be dissolved. I may need to just keep everybody that's currently playing, and Reed's not playing with them.
Well, here's the thing. Let's dial it back. Do you know who wasn't playing at one point in time? Amen Thompson. Do you know who wasn't playing at one point in time that much? Jalen Green. Jabari Smith had a run.
Oh, all right. Well, so Jabari Smith, these are different. Jabari Smith got a doghouse with a new coach. Jabari Smith got doghoused. He was still on the roster. They didn't send him down to the G League. Jalen Green, it's a rookie year thing of like, and also there were questions about Jalen Green. He's small. He doesn't defend. And it's like, what's his scoring going to look like? Is he going to be able to get to the basket? Is he going to make the jumpers? And now he is. Like, there was real stuff there. Reed is very good today and would play for everyone else and is just behind a logjam. So I'm just putting it out there. If I'm the Kings, I'm just saying, I would have some energy for a Spurs trade that involved Houston and enriched Houston further, maybe gave them some more ammo for their future Devin Booker acquisition. And put Reed Shepherd at the top of my my trade there. I'm just saying, it's an idea. It's an idea. Throw tomatoes if you like. The background is already red. You can't hurt me.
What did the G League do to you, man?
I was forced to watch it when we took over the Birmingham Squadron when I was tracking Carlo Matkovic's development last year. And when Carlo Matkovic is outclassing the G League when he plays, that should make people nervous about what the G League is. Because that happened when he came over from Europe and played in the back half of last season. I was just watching him yam on everybody and block shots and be a hub creator. And those are things he cannot do in the NBA. And so there's like a rift. I just real quick tangent. We're 33 minutes and I do want to keep this a little tighter. Quick tangent. I believe the G League can be a place for very good players to just go and get some basketball. But there's a rift for the majority of the people that play there between the talent level of the G League versus what the NBA offers. Like they are not close to equivalent, but you do have some guys that are like waiting their turn, or like a Trey Murphy had a stint where there weren't any minutes and he gets sent down for a week. Reed's been down for more than a week. This isn't like a weekly thing. He's spending like half his year there. And when he does get onto the roster or onto the lineup sheet for the Rockets, plays like 12 minutes and touches the ball a handful of times. So I'm just saying, just an idea. But I do believe, there's a talent rift. People go down there. It's almost like the sin bin in hockey. It's almost like a 5-minute major. Like, hey, we don't have anything for you. Or, it's creative at WWE. We don't really have anything for you right now. You're going to have to go down there and figure it out. And when you have something, come tell us about it. We're happy to hear you. Might put you back on Monday night.
This man said Reed Shepherd's and catering. All right. So I did my job, which is unlocking a rant. So continue on.
All right. So anyway, that's my new mock. All right. And just to say it again for posterity, I'm saying Houston does get involved, doesn't get De'Aaron Fox. Spurs send a boat of picks, but a couple of those picks give me over. Maybe even Sacramento gets involved in some way, and there's something on Sacramento's roster that Houston's interested in. But Houston gets enriched to some degree. Sacramento kind of gives up the majority of the picks in order to get like a guy they believe in that they don't have to wait to draft, that they get right now. And maybe they get like Reed Shepherd and a pick. And then like, you know, they'd have to pick up like Zach Collins or somebody like that. But yeah, 3-teamer with the Spurs and Sacramento. Houston's involved, but Houston doesn't get Fox, and Reed Shepherd finds a home in Sacramento where things can, I would just be very interested in that. I would be very interested in watching him play basketball. And I think people are forgetting he exists right now. Now, moving on, our final topic of the day, and another in your favorite vein of the NBA. So we got all this player movement now. We've got a near confirmation that Jimmy Butler is going to move. Mm-hmm. We've got the shop window on Main Street. De'Aaron Fox is dancing behind it. So we've got major salaries in the air. We've got rumors about Middleton and Portis and Milwaukee. Milwaukee's trying to do stuff. Toronto's interested in kind of whoever's gonna fall out of those deals. Zach LaVine in Chicago has been looking for a home for a while, and I think that's one of the ones I believe like will happen, and maybe it's Milwaukee that he ends up with. Does all this movement do something for the Brandon Ingram market? We've heard next to nothing.
Are you sure? Oh, you're setting it up. My bad.
We've heard next to nothing on Brandon Ingram for weeks. Does it do anything? Does it open something up? Does it open a door? Maybe crack open a door of somebody that wasn't previously interested? Sounds like it might. According to Jake Fisher and Mark Stein, Toronto is looming. Toronto appears to be hanging in the shadows, hanging out in the background, waiting to catch the $30 million a year remains of one of these guys. Which one? Not so clear. Rumored to be, a player to watch in the Brandon Ingram not so sweepstakes. So do we think this opens more doors with more player movement? Does that mean that other teams, more counter moves open up? Do you believe that Toronto really has something here for one of these guys? And might it be Brandon Ingram?
I mean, well, there is reporting the Raptors are looking for a significant piece to pair with Scotty Barnes. And maybe that significant piece is Brandon Ingram. I mean, I think when it comes to trades, there's always a domino that you need to have fall first. And so right now we've got two pretty heavy ones that are hanging in the balance. You got Jimmy Butler, you got De'Aaron Fox. Where are they going to fall? Who's going to be involved? Is it going to be a mega trade? Is it going to be a tiny trade? Is it going to be 1-for-1? There's all sorts of things involved. There are teams that are probably saying, hey, if we can get someone for the right price. I think that's probably the biggest part about this era that I'm realizing. We want to keep our players, so we have talent to move them. We want to acquire players, but if we can get them on the right price, we'll double. You know what I mean? I'm sure there's someone who called for Jimmy Butler that maybe didn't call a week ago. I say all that to say, are you ready for RJ Barrett?
That's mean. It's really cruel. Duke South. And the better question, I don't know if you've been paying attention to football, but could Duke South bring the Pelicans, as Jerry Jones would say, to the glory hole?
He said what now?
Yeah, he did. He did enjoy that quote. It's worse than you think, too. He said he wanted the Dallas Cowboys to get back to the glory hole. And then he repeated it, and then he explained himself. And it turns out that this is an old-timey oil saying, and he just still thinks it's modern. And the modern application of the word, not what it used to be, Jerry. Not what it used to be. He didn't like that. He's uncomfortable.
It's unfortunate.
For the audio listeners.
That's very unfortunate. But
So,
yeah,
yeah.
I mean, who else would they trade to get Brandon Ingram?
A bunch of stuff. A lot of people are doing like Jakob Pertl and things, and
Nope.
I don't want it. I don't want a damn thing to do with that. He's a good passer and everything, and he can block shots, but he doesn't do much else for me, and I don't want him with Zion.
Let's go ahead and fire this little website up. Keep going.
Yeah, I just
cook up. See what I cook up.
There's still a Kelly Olynyk over there. There's a Bruce Brown that could get redirected over there. That could maybe you could move on to a third team, and help facilitate that. Maybe get something else you like. I could see something like that, but even the reporting on Toronto, it just kind of sounds like we're in the background. We're waiting to see what falls out of these deals. It is January 29th. The deadline is next Thursday at 2:00 for those inquiring February 6th at 2 p.m. So if something's going to move, you should hear something about it fairly soon, or assume that it is not going to happen. And yeah,
does RJ Barrett and Chris Boucher work for you?
RJ Barrett's has more years. He has so many more years, and he's just RJ Barrett. He just rumbles to the rim and gets you some rebounds and stuff. He can't really shoot that well. And I just like, can I please have shooting? I want to please have shooting.
But more then BI would be gone. So then you have, the rim attacks of RJ Barrett and Zion, and then you have the scoring of CJ and the elbow pull-ups of DeJounte.
And where and who is opening the air for all of those people to cook under that arc? Who is doing that? Other than Trey Murphy, because he's the only person doing it currently.
Oh, CJ.
Okay.
Easy.
All right. Yeah. So CJ and Trey cemented in the starting lineup. CJ conscripted to the corner, and RJ Barrett rumbling, fumbling, stumbling to the rim, taking turns. So we go to a trio of your ball, my ball, of DeJounte Murray elbow jumpers, Zion drives, and RJ Barrett driving on the opposite side. I mean, hey, that's art. That is art.
Hey, BI don't sound so bad, huh?
Does sound a little better now. I'm not gonna lie. Real quick for the sponsor. Thank you to Crescent Canna, maker of the Crescent 9, highly satisfying Crescent 9 THC seltzer. You can shop them at the QR code below. Go get you a little 5 milligram ginger lemonade action, as I often do. We won't talk about whether my favorite flavor is still in my house or not, given that some changes have been made. But they're still with us. They are still in all of your grocery stores. You can get them right around the corner, probably from the neighborhood you're in. I know I can get them around the corner. They're a stone's throw from my front door. And they're also just like all over my house, because like we're signed up. We're in here now. This is part of our lives now. So check them out. New Orleans #1 cannabis company making hemp-derived THC. Consult your doctor if any concerns before consuming. 21 and older. Give them a shout. Show them some love. Try the new flavors that are gonna start showing up soon. And thank you for coming to another episode of From the Wing. Steve scared me a little bit because I feel like he's cooking something. He has that look on his face, and I was going to go with a heart out, and he's smirking. All right, heart out it is.
Hey, what was Messi's plus minus in the Memphis game?
No, we're not doing that. We are not doing that. Not